me, what's your name, please?
Thomas Lomas. To be honest, I had a life of luxury there. She didn't entertain a lot, due to her age, I suppose, and she spent a lot of time in her room, and her lady's maid, everything went through her lady's maid that we did. I had to prepare, she used to have afternoon tea occasionally in the morning room. I had to answer the door to all visitors. I was responsible for the cleaning all the silver and all, making sure that all the cutlery and everything was in order there. That's basically what I did there. And she'd have afternoon tea in the morning room,
Right.
which is now the blue room at Thorsby.
Well, did you have to serve that?
Yes, yes, you served tea in the blue room. Well, that was the morning room then.
Was it a very formal occasion?
Yeah, yeah, just afternoon tea, that's basically, because as I say, due to her age, and I wouldn't like to be 100% sure, but I've got a feeling that that was the place where she used to have a carriage, not a wheelchair, but a carriage, a wicker carriage, and I've got a feeling that I used to wheel her along the
well, that's what you said when we stayed there. You said, I'm sure I walked up and down it.
the terrace, go out through the library door.
Yes.
And
I know what you mean, yeah.
Along the terrace there, along the front.
Ah.
And I'm sure that's where we used to go.
So that she could look at the garden?
Yeah, she used to be she was a lovely person, really.
Yeah.
She used to chat and tell me about the surrounding areas. And,
well, can you remember anything that she...
well, she used to describe how the things used to be in the years, I suppose, before, basically, when they had all the full staff.
Can you remember how much you got paid for your job?
Oh no, very, very little.
Not much.
Yeah, very little, about £2 a month, something like that.
But you were getting your board and lodging?
Oh yeah, and your clothes, remember?
Oh yeah.
And
so you're just spending money then?
That was the beauty of Thorsby, the fact that she'd got her own laundry staff. You get all your washing done. See, there were anomalies that you didn't normally get at other places.
No.
I was sorry when the war broke out and I had to, because we knew it was imminent.
Before the war, when old lady Magnus was there.
Yes.
And she ruled Spelthorpe like with a rod of iron, like, and she used to drive around in a pony and trap with a little lad on the back step. They used to get out to open the gates, there were gates everywhere then. And then she never used to stop for her, he used to have to run behind.
I'll catch up with him.
To catch her up. And if there was a few twigs on the road, she used to complain and all that. We used to have to bow to her when she went by, and girls used to have to curtsy.
You went to school in the village?
I went to school at Spelthorpe when I was 11. And everybody went really, and I mean, the village was sort of self-contained. The cricket club, everybody from in the cricket club lived at Spelthorpe there, and nothing went on, as I say, but people were happy, I suppose. And they had, I mean, village schools, it depended on the teacher. If they got a bad teacher, it was hopeless, really. But the year I was 11, I think there was 4 people took the 11, what was it, college scholarship in those days, and they all passed. But all you got was a free bike to London to catch a bus to go to Mansfield.
Went to the new school?
You know,
yeah.
Either went to Brunts or Queen Elizabeth at Mansfield. Anyway, we decided that I'd go away to school, and I went to a boarding school in Lincolnshire. It was a grammar school, used to say. So that's where I went.
And so with you all getting the scholarship, Or
All,
passing
all the
scholarship?
lot passed that year, yeah.
Presumably they were good teachers.
Yes, that's what, at the start of the war, the other lady came from out of Lancashire. I think she probably only, Manchester probably, she only came to get out of the Blitz or whatever, out of the bombing. And she brought 2 sons, and she lived where your mother lived, called her
Yes.
Mrs. Bradley. War was declared on the 3rd of September, and the very next day, all these horses and army, they must have been territorials, I would think. They were all high-powered people, like all. And the colonel of the regiment was Colonel Harry Llewellyn, and it was the Warwickshire Yeomanry. And there was Lord Cowdray and Lord Carnarvon and all people like that. They were all people who worked for them. And there was something like 300 or 400 horses. And they tethered them right from Century House up towards the hall. We used to call that Green Drive, between the river and the garden wall.
Yes.
They were tethered on both sides there. And somebody, they reckon it was somebody, I don't know what you'd call it, let them all loose one sort of getting at them, I don't know. And they all got around the village, ever so many, and there was to be a big iron gate against the school, between the school and the church, a great big iron, ever so high. One jumped over and stuck on the top. And Mr. Carey was head keeper then. He had to go and shoot him. What happened then, I mean, it was marvellous really. I don't think they could do it today. Ration books were introduced after about a week or 2, and everybody got everybody had an identity card before the war. I think they knew the war was coming. And I can still tell you my number.
Which is?
It's ROLA 24-3. My father was 24-1 and mother's 24. Anyway, and as I say, my father had to take that, and he used to go up to Thorpe Hall and stables and all there every day. And there was a butler's house and a chauffeur's house and a valet house. And but then, about 3rd day of the war, the YMCA set up on that corner, just against the stables, is like a crossroads. If you know, one goes down to the hall, one goes round back of the gardens.
Yes.
And the YMCA was on that corner. And then nearly parallel to it was the NAFI, further down.
Busiest place. I bet.
And that, of course, everybody in the village then could go buy cheap cigarettes from the... All the wives joined the women's voluntary services and sort of went and served at the NAFI or the YMCA. And they could buy subsidised cigarettes and all that sort of thing, and that's where all the farm workers got to smoke and that. My father had to buy a lorry to cart the swill from the camp and cart the horses, straw and hay and muck from the horses, and he ought to have been a millionaire really, I think. They had no shortage, like, you know, there used to be all big villagers got 2 ounces of butter a week or something. I don't know what it was, the ration, you could probably find that out. But, I mean, they used to get big blocks of butter that had gone off, that never been used. My father was buying pigs, there weren't many pigs to buy, but feed them on this stuff. And they rooted all those yards up at home farm. A lot of these officers' wives, these high-powered people, wanted digs for the wives, you know, in the village. My mother had 2, and one was Lord Cowdray's sister, and she came off a honeymoon to go, and she was called Lakin, and he was a big man in the Conservative Party after the war, and the other one was called Poole, and he was also a Conservative MP after the war. And they, as I say, they went to, these women stopped at our house. My mother, they boarded in the 2 front bedrooms. And then we got 2 evacuees pushed onto as well.
And they were from Sheffield?
They all came, and they issued so many to have, it depends how many bedrooms you'd got, how many, and there were people that, the worst thing was, next door to where you live now, there's a chap called Moody, Jack Moody, an oldest chap, and never had any children, didn't know anything about children. Well, they dumped a couple on him, sort of thing. Well, they'd no idea with the kids.
And can you remember the names of the two evacuees that were with you?
Alan Goff, they called one. And the other one, they called him Williams, I reckon. Most of them went back after about a month or two. They just ran wild in the village when they came, you know, they'd never seen anything like it. And they used to be letting stock out and run.
So we could talk now about the parties at the hall, because presumably some of the estate children went and some of the evacuees.
Oh, there
as well,
were
did they?
all the children in school went to the Christmas party at the hall, which was something we looked forward to.
I bet.
You know, you had your best frock on and your clean socks. And, you know, and we all went down to the party and we had tea in the servants' hall. And then we went up into the main part and there was all chairs out and there was always a conjurer, which we thought wonderful.
Fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, and then of course Lady Mambus would come in and call your name out and give you your Christmas parcel, which was good.
And this went on throughout the war?
Yes. I remember most, which I hated, when we had to go acorn picking on dear Shed Hill.
What do you do with the acorns?
Well, they were to feed the pheasants.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And we used to go. Well, we used to, I mean, they weigh light, don't they? You only got a penny for a bagful.
Do you remember ice skating at all?
Oh, yes.
Anyway?
On that, where the tennis court was, it went down and they used to flood it for ice skating. Now, I remember we had a toboggan brought to school from Lady Roselle.
Oh, yeah.
A proper toboggan, and we used to take it up onto Deer Shed Hill and come down there. You know, when we lived in that cottage before the new houses, I'm going back when we was quite young, well, Lord Mambus had this thing about, he altered our cottages, and he had this thing, a turbo for electric.
Ah, that's what I was going to ask you about.
Yes,
yeah.
it was. Well, we had that. When it was windy now, it got beautiful light, but Mum always had lamp pile ready. Arthur would have been interesting to you, because he said the choir trip was something so out of the ordinary, because Mr. Levitt used to take them and he was a lovely fella. And Arthur says we went to Nottingham and we went in boots to tea. Oh, he says, cakes were gorgeous. He says, and there was one, it was like a little chocolate box. He says, and I'd got my eye on that cake. And he said, I didn't have another sandwich, I wanted that cake. Oh, Arthur could tell a good story.
Yeah.